Good morning, David.
More or less, how are you this morning?
Yeah, excellent. Is this big enough?
Yeah, well, you change your colors of shirts, and you also change the color of your coffee cups. I don't get it. So I know you're trying to work on my flexibility in life, so you're doing it well.
All right.
And it actually comes up to the topic we're going to discuss today. Is a term called reactance. And it's an interesting term as we're working on the doc journey. And by far and away, the biggest factor that blocks people treatment is willingness to engage. If you decide to engage in the tools and strategies that Les and I use, which are different styles of the same thing, by the way, is we teach you to calm down your nervous system and to change. But basically, reactance is a term I just learned about 6 months ago. And I put up on the Facebook notes a book called Catalyst by Jonathan Berger, which is a really beautifully written, concise marketing book by Jonathan Berger, B-E-R-G-E-R. And he talks about how data never changes things. It just doesn't. So there's one basic concept in marketing called reactance. So if you have facts that support your belief system, of course, it reinforces it. But if you have facts that contradict your belief system, it actually reinforces it even more. And a classic example is a friend of mine who has some very strong belief systems. And he was reading a book that really, in a very scholarly way, dismantled the belief system completely without any question of a doubt. And his comment was he was open-minded because he read the book. But what he also said that there are some things he agreed with, and then the things that he disagreed with, he just tossed aside. And that's a classic example of reactance. So same thing with chronic pain. The doctor is missing something, you believe that, or you become attached to a diagnosis. It's actually a neurological trick, what we call obsessive thought patterns. We talked about this yesterday with deeply embedded rigid thinking, and it's really deadly because with repetition, these become really deeply embedded. We all sort of know that brainwashing works. We don't know why, but I've had lots of conversations with my patients that were literally brainwashed by our own lives. So Les, you have it. This is really your area of expertise. I'm excited to learn about this a little bit. What does my guru have to say today about this?
What Les has to say about this today is this is a very important topic. From time to time, even those in your projects and books that you're working with, and the patients that I'm working with, the clients I'm working with, it doesn't matter where we are in this. It doesn't matter whether it's political, whether it's chronic pain. What tends to happen is we believe what we believe, and anytime a piece of information comes through, we confirm its biases. It's called confirmation bias also. But what you're talking about, reactance, is basically a very, very important concept. The more someone tries to convince you, the more you go like, nope, much like your friend, like it dismantles it. So why do we do what we do? Well, we do that because from an ACT perspective, because it's working. So think about this, is in ACT, we have a concept called workability that therapists work with clients on this. When someone's trying to convince you that you could do something, or no, your pain can get better, or no, it's not about this, what happens is that you dig your feet deeper into it. No. Now, why do we do that? It's because it serves us. So in ACT, we call it workability. If you believe what you believe and it's getting you the life you want, you're feeling peaceful, you're getting functional, and you are living life to the fullest, as we say in ACT, then carry on. So if you're doing what you're doing is serving a greater purpose and having a more fulfilling life, then keep believing what you're doing. The reality is it's not. And so why do we do that? We do that because
Dr. Arya,
go ahead.
From your perspective, it's not, but for them, maybe it is. I mean, that's the hard part for me personally, is that so people are miserably in pain, and I don't know if they don't want to give it up. Now, I've also learned that they can't give it up because that filter is so deeply embedded. I mean, all of us are brainwashed by our lives, right? We learn how to survive today based on our past experience. And so we're completely programmed by our past. And so anything you do to me today, I'm alive right now. Whether I'm happy or unhappy doesn't really matter. I'm alive. That's the basic thing. And so if people aren't willing to tolerate uncertainty, vulnerability, etc., they're going to just remember this structure that you keep reinforcing is a structure that gives you security.
Yeah.
And people don't want to give it up. So you use the word workability, and it took me 5 years to figure this out, that the harder I try to change somebody. So I'm going to change your statement a little bit, because I agree with you that if this is a life you want, and intellectually they may not want to be in pain,
Yeah.
but their whole body is used to being in pain. I'll use the word that I don't think they can give it up. I mean, they may want to give it up intellectually, but their whole body says no.
Yeah.
And so again, the reactance is a part of that process that reinforces that behavioral pattern.
Yeah, and David, that's the part I'm looking at. I'm not looking at anything else. So in ACT, we don't try to convince people. In ACT, we don't try to change people's belief. We look at the behavior. So if you're sitting on the couch and you're like, no, I have a damaged back, and they've worked with you or they've read your book and they're like, no, I still believe there's something missing. By not getting up and doing what some of the things that you asked them to do or I asked them to do, that's serving a purpose. And what is it serving? I have a term just to use it. Sometimes we're comfortable being uncomfortable.
Okay. I mean, I
Now,
agree, but I'd like you if you could unpack that a little bit.
yeah, sure,
I
absolutely.
agree with you, but I don't know what to do with that.
So very good. So let me explain it visually and then tell you what to do and how we do it in ACT. So this is where we are. We're feeling very low. We're not getting better. We're not doing anything. And this is what the book tells you to do, is to get up here and to make some steps, to make a leap. That gap is your fear. That gap is, oh my gosh, I have to put this effort in. Sometimes we feel so deep in the hole, as if we're in a well. Looking up to get out of this hole is just so intimidating. So what we do is in ACT, we ask you is, why do you even want to get out of the hole? So you have to define your why, W-H-Y, W-H-Y, not why, but define why is it important for you to get out of the hole. And until you define why you want to get out of the hole, you will stay stuck. And that's the trick is, and once you figure out, okay, I want to get out of this because I am miserable. I want to be able to play with my grandkids and walk with my spouse, or to actually be able to breathe and not be hurting so much. You have to actually figure out what's valuable to me, as if it's a carrot in front of you. And then in ACT, we ask you to take one tiny step, just one tiny step. That's the trick of it. You have to define your why. And if not, you will be lost in the circle of your beliefs.
Right. And we'll discuss this next week. There's a thing called predictive coding. And we now know that thoughts are as real as this chair or table. We've mentioned that several times. But I finally realized after about 5 years, I mean, I was blown away that people didn't want to get better or they couldn't get better. I just couldn't understand it. I mean, why wouldn't you not want to feel better?
Both of us, David, and I've struggled with that when I was first licensed, and some 18 years ago, I was so gung ho, and I used to come home with tension headache. Like, why do they not want to get better?
Right.
And it was because I'm like, how dare I try to take someone's suffering away when your suffering is sometimes what you want, and like you said, sometimes people don't want to suffer and don't want to struggle, yet they don't do anything. It's because they don't have a direction. And it's scary is what it is.
Well, and we do agree with this very carefully that we're not asking you to leap out of the hole. I wrote a little thing called the DOC stair steps. It's just one step at a time.
Yep.
It's like building a house one brick at a time. You just put the bricks in place, and sometimes the bricks fall apart. You just put them back in place again. So it's not a very, real, and we've asked you, I mean, one thing I ask my clients over and over and over again, just be nice to yourself. So you take the steps you can tolerate, and if it hits a limit that's uncomfortable, stop. And when you feel good again, keep going forward. I think I've learned this from you. And it's called pendulation, big word.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you to summarize this in a second, but just to take note, this is called dynamic healing for a reason. It looks at interaction between your circumstances and your coping skills. And if you can't tolerate your circumstances, you have fear and you're in a threat state. So you actually can't function as well as you would like. So that's part of what actually is a big part of what adds to reactance. So it's the unconscious brain is very powerful. So this is dynamic healing, and that's why we have that term. We look at the interaction between your circumstances and who you are as a person. And then we systematically help you out of the hole by helping you feel safe. So I put a book up on the link. It's called Catalyst, Catalyst, by Dr. Jonathan Berger. Oh, sorry, Jonathan Berger. He's not a physician or psychologist. He's a marketing person, but it is a brilliant book on human behavior. And just looking at your personal way you deal with life is fascinating. Just the human behavior that he points out in this resource. So, Les, I like your concepts about if your lifestyle right now is serving your needs, maybe not your wishes, but your needs,
Yeah.
go with it.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. And I think we need to respect and honor people's choices. And sometimes many of my patients get sick of being sick. And
Right.
that's when, and it takes sometimes a flare up. It takes someone finally leaving. It takes something that hits them bedrock and they go, okay, now I want help. And that's fine. So here's my takeaway for everyone to think about. When you're engaged in a behavior that's not helpful, or you know you want to be somewhere else and this is where you are, ask yourself, is what's important to me? Who is important to me? Define your why. That's the one tip I want to give you. I have another tip. So again, when you find yourself in misery and you're like, yes, but, ask yourself the next question. How is this serving me?
Right.
How are my choices moving me towards the life that I can have? And here's my tip that here is that you deserve. How can I make a step, a move towards the life that I deserve? And everyone deserves a happy life. The problem comes back down to it. Define your why. If you don't define who or what's important to you, like the carrot in front of you. I get up every morning, I do my morning routines. I connect with you, David, with fun and safe people. I meditate, I pray, I do all my stuff, exercise. And I do that because I wish to have a happy life. And why? Because when I'm my best around my family and friends. So that's important to me. Also, as I get older, my body will start to break down naturally. So I want to make sure I stay strong and fit as much as I can, independent of what's happened to me as far as my body. So people, things that I value is what I'm moving towards. And whenever I don't do something or exercise or meditate, I ask myself, how is this serving me? How is this moving me closer towards the life I want? And it's not. So I keep those two pointers in mind as you go about and drop us a comment. And what do you think about these tips and what David talks about reacting? We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, this is a big topic, and it's an important topic. When I heard this word reactance, I was just blown away. So anyway, this is
Yeah.
Dynamic Healing Moments with Dr. Les Aria, who can be found at remedypain.co. And I can be found at www.thedocjourney.com. And we're excited to talk to you and have a great day.
Take care.
All
See you,
right.
everyone. Happy.